Taoiseach, welcome to the House. I wish you were getting applause like that every morning. In the course of your service as a public representative and in public life, by any measure, you have made major changes in the posts and departments in which you have held. But, of course, one of those that you haven't held is the Senate, so we're delighted to welcome you here to the Seanad for even a few hours. Since you were elected in 1985 to Cork City Council and to Dáil Éireann in 1989, and as the first citizen and Lord Mayor of Cork from 1992 to 1993, your public service has been about change. In your first cabinet post as the Minister for Education and Science, you championed the cause of special needs assistance. In 2004, as Minister for Health, you gave Ireland the distinction of bringing in the first workplace ban on smoking. You were the first foreign minister to visit Gaza in 2010 to bring the eyes of the world upon that humanitarian crisis, and you boycotted and you bypassed the blockade on Gaza. Time does not allow me the opportunity to outline all the changes you have implemented. I just wanted to highlight a few. Taoiseach, thank you for coming to the Senate today. As we know, you fought for the Senate not as it was or as it was in the past, but as it could be or what it should be in that famous referendum. One of the key changes was allowing more people to vote. To the best of my knowledge, the 7th Amendment to the Constitution is the only referendum that has been put to the people and passed by the people that has not been enacted by successive administrations. As we approach our 100th year, it would be timely for the government to support legislation that would give effect to the 7th Amendment to the Constitution, passed over 40 years ago. It would increase the right to vote for our citizens and increase the amount of people entitled to vote in a reformed Senate election from 150,000 to potentially millions. With the support of all the party leaders and group leaders and the members of this House, we have implemented the relevant recommendations in the Senate reform reports that were within the power of the Senate to action. For the first time ever, we are reviewing the recommendations of Oireachtas committee reports. Yesterday, we had Deputy James Lawless, the chairman of the Justice Committee, before us to talk about the report that his committee have put together in relation to the issue of rape and sexual violence. We look at these reports 6 months after they have been published so that we can see what of the recommendations have in fact been actioned. The debate yesterday outlined the continued action that is required to make sure all the recommendations proposed by the committee are put in place. Another one of the renewals was the increased engagement with the public and our nominating bodies, the charities, the trade unions, the farmers, the business organisations, culture and educational sectors on issues of concern to them in our new Senate panel forums. The first of these topics was the issue of ending the practice of non-disclosure agreements by universities, which silence victims and protect the guilty and allowing abuse to continue. The government have now committed to bringing legislation on this problem. And one of the constant themes on the issue of Seanad renewal and reform has been the issue of European legislation scrutiny. Parliamentary language, as we know, is often complex and in some ways is used to confuse and prevent transparency. In legislative phraseology, the European Communities Act is used by ministers who have total authority to transpose EU directives by way of statutory instruments that can only be annulled by resolutions of the Oireachtas. In essence, what this means is that departments add to EU legislation, which are signed into Irish law by ministers, without TDs, senators or parliamentary committees seeing them, bypassing the democratic scrutiny. The worst example of this was the bypassing of TDs and senators and even the Health Committee on the first and to date the only piece of organ donor legislation in the history of the state. And no TD, no senator or even the Health Committee saw that before it was signed into Irish law, and Mark Murphy, the chair of the Irish Kidney Association, said it was the worst transposition of that EU directive in the European Union. With your assistance and help, we hope that this House will play a role in making sure that those laws are scrutinised by the Oireachtas. Next year is our 100th anniversary. Established in the middle of a bitter, tragic and divisive civil war, a war in which many families, including my own, lost loved ones In the midst of that war, the Senate played a role in establishing and consolidating the democratic institutions of our state. Between November 1922 and February 1923, 37 senators had their homes destroyed. They were intimidated and kidnapped, but none resigned. The first Senate was described as being the most diverse bunch of politicians in our history. It had 36 Catholics, 20 Protestants, 3 Quakers, and 1 member of the Jewish faith. Some of its members included, famously, and we know, W.B. Yeats, but Michael Duffy, a road worker from County Meath, Eileen Costello, a civil rights campaigner, Brian Mahon, the Commander-in-Chief of the British forces in Ireland between 1916 and 1918, and Jenny Wise Power, President of Cumann, and Thomas Henry Grattan Esmond, the great-grandson of Henry Grattan of Grattan's Parliament. The creator of the Senate, those creators all those years ago, ensured that it was diverse to give a platform for the voices of the unionist and minority communities who found themselves in the new state. Over time, that has evolved to give different minorities and different communities the forum to ensure that their views and their voices and their calls for change that society was not yet too ready or too willing to make, was heard. Those voices included a sole voice. Our colleague and the father of the House and the longest continuous serving senator in the history of the state, Senator Norris, he is the embodiment of the Senate as one of those minority voices who have led to major change. We are fortunate that Senator Eileen Flynn was appointed by you to represent the traveller community in this Senate. She is using that position to bring change and to have a voice for her community, a community who has suffered on the margins of our society for too long. Finally, next year, as we mark our 100th anniversary, we will be glancing back, but we will be looking forward. We hope, with your assistance and with your government's assistance, that we can make the changes that we seek for the next 100 years, so that those minority communities can continue to make major changes in this House to benefit us all on this shared island. Taoiseach, thank you, and we look forward to your address. Gur magadh.